Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times, that would be me, and these other little books right there, where you can get my books, my merchandise, down in that description. Hit up my link tree, you guys. Fiddle about because there's some really funny merchandise. There's some cool pieces. A lot of it was suggestions from you guys, because you guys bring the best gifts to me, and I'm always so appreciative of your friendship, of the family we have here, of your support, your opinions, your sharing of your own stories and lives, and your fears and your vulnerabilities. Thank you guys so much for trusting me with that. I just cannot even tell you how amazed and humbled I am, so thank you as always. And as always, we are going to start the night just like we do in rock and roll with a little drinky drink. And we are going to be finishing off this prairie, you guys. It's a rainbow sherbet. It is so good. It's a nice sour. I don't have much left in my glass because I had a little incidences in the previous video that I was filming. Me with my talky hands just almost got electrocuted, went in the microphone, was going into the cords. Yeah, had a little issues. So we are going to drink what's left of this stuff. So everybody batten down the hatches, because keep your arms in the ride at all times, because you never know what I'm going to knock over here. So kick up your feet. Let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. And I love this one. I've had this one quite a few times, the Prairie Rainbow Sherbet. It's a nice sour. It's got that kind of rainbow sherbet flavor, because really, is there a difference between the lime and the raspberry or the orange? No, it's just rainbow sherbet. We just love that nice little sour twist that it has. And this, guys, is no different. Absolutely love it. And speaking of loving it, we are going to talk about the movie Priscilla. The new movie Priscilla. Not the upteen others that came before this Priscilla. Because let's face it, guys, Hollywood must tell the same story of the same rock and roll women over and over and over. Not that this is degrading to their stories, or that they aren't incredible women, but and this is kind of where we're going to start. Because let's face it, the story of Priscilla has been told in how many different movies about Elvis? Might have, and she wrote her own book, which Sofia Coppola, when she did this movie, she followed the book exactly, because I read the book when it came out ages ago. And she followed the book very, very well and followed Priscilla's story. And Priscilla, I'm sure Priscilla worked on it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think she did work on it with her. But she really kept true to Priscilla's own voice, which I appreciate, because my voice is out here and people don't fucking even bother Googling it. They just kind of make up their own story. So the fact that Sofia Coppola really did follow Priscilla's story, I think is great. I think that's awesome. She even got some of the outfits down. Like, she went and looked at all the pictures that Priscilla had that we all know of, like, there's one of Priscilla, young Lisa Marie, and Elvis, and Priscilla's in this purple and white outfit with these purple pants. She got that outfit down to the T. Like, I really appreciate that she really did kind of go out of her way to make it as authentic as possible. So I think, that was one of the things I really loved about it, and that the way they kind of, I really like the scenes where they were kind of holed up in Elvis's bedroom for days on end, and just taking sexy pictures and doing stuff like that and hanging out. And it kind of, for me, defined the moment that she really, truly got lost into Elvis's world. Because Priscilla, as we all know, was extremely young. And it really does kind of center on the fact that Priscilla had all these expectations on her. Like, I totally get that, because I was young when I started hanging out backstage. But she had all these expectations that Elvis expected her to be that perfect, pure little girl that he brought over. He expected her to be perfect in high school. He expected her to be the perfect rock wife, the perfect rock chick, to keep up with him and his posse and to be drinking. But then he expected her to stay faithful. Well, of course, he was not out there doing that. And he groomed her in a lot of ways. And I definitely know that he kind of manipulated her, because this is another center of this whole movie, that the manipulation, because he would say, he was really torn between her and Anne Margaret. And he was like, I need her because she gets me. I need you because I need you to understand that a good woman will overlook me cheating. And Priscilla, she was trying to stay true to herself and true to her emotions and her convictions, but Elvis definitely would manipulate her. He's like, but it's you I love. But it's you I love. But it's you I want to be with. And you I love. And you must be this woman, or otherwise you can go back. He would threaten to pack her clothes and send her back to Germany, or send her back to wherever, to her parents, back to Texas, constantly. So it was this manipulative roller coaster. And I'm really glad that Sofia Coppola brought that side out. I'm really glad that she kind of brought out, because, especially in these days and age, it's something that is very hard to approach when it comes to the age of a young girl amassed in rock and roll, like Priscilla was, or like I was, or like the 70s groupies, Sable and Lori Maddox, So I'm glad that they kind of brought that more side to it. That they kind of, Priscilla went from, there's something I wrote that goes into my second book that somebody said to me. He's like, sweetie, like the first time I ever jumped on a tour bus, I went to tour. He was all, love. He's like, trust me. He's like, you're going to want to get on that fucking tour bus. He's like, rock and roll is going to change you from a girl to a woman before you're ready for it. It's going to take you in places where you can't even remember where the fuck you are. But it's also going to give you a family and make friendships and memories that you will never, ever have a chance to make again. So get on that bus. And she did that. That was basically kind of how I see Priscilla was definitely turned in, not just by Elvis buying her the clothes and having the hair and makeup done, but his mental, physical, and emotional expectations of her. And it was definitely that Madonna horror complex that, I think he did marry Anne Margaret. I think he really loved Anne Margaret, but she was the whore away from home, while he had the Madonna that he was raising to be exactly the wife that he wanted. Which, a lot of people, they praise people like Elvis. They praise people like Hugh Hefner. They praise people like Ted Nugent. We don't praise Ted Nugent. He's a fucking joke. That man's a piece of shit. I've met him several times. But so is Elvis and Hugh Hefner. They manipulate women and use them for their own prowess, for their own satisfaction, for their own gain, for their own version of how things should go. And, this is one thing that I really, really always tell women. Make rock and roll your own. Make your backstage adventure your own. Don't compromise yourself. Because you see in this movie how many times that Priscilla compromised herself. How many times she gave in to Elvis's manipulations, his tears, his crawling back, his grabbing her, being like, I love you. And he was abusive in more than just one way. Which I'm glad that, I think it should be touched up on a little more. That's one thing I'm kind of bummed, because like I said, we've seen the Priscilla story on screen at least 6 times. At least 6 times. I love Sofia Coppola. I love Lost in Translation. I love Marie Antoinette with Kirsten Dunst. I love the way she approaches her movies, and the way she uses music and stuff to kind of tell a story. And she definitely did this with this, but I think she left a lot of the story out. And she did use a lot of words, a lot of, not words, but the scenes to more tell the story than the words would tell. Like, poor Priscilla, she didn't even get a chance to plan her own wedding. She didn't have a chance to set the date. She didn't get to go shopping for her wedding dress with her mom. She was just thrown on a plane, said, this is it. Tonight we're going to be husband and wife. You finally get to do what you've been begging for, because Elvis had her begging at every fucking turn. Please don't do this. Please take me. What is wrong with me? And Elvis definitely played in on that. What is wrong with me? She asked herself that for so many fucking years, even on her wedding night, even after her wedding night. I I really like how Sofia Coppola played on the emotion of how she found out that she was pregnant with Lisa Marie. She was thrilled, but she was 21 years old. 21. And she knew in some way, and you could see the disappointment in her face, because other Elvis movies have made it sound like, oh, precious, we're having a baby, hug, hug. It was rainbows and kittens, right? No, it was not. And I'm so glad that Sofia Coppola kind of captured that, because I think that what it brought out in this movie, in that situation, was that Priscilla knew that the Madonna and the whore thing, and then once she had a kid, Elvis would be, that's too sacred for him to touch. She had a child, and a lot of men go through this, and Elvis was one of them, especially back in those days. So she all of a sudden became too sacred to touch. She had a kid. He was so separated in his brain about one way of society's depiction of women that it was definitely a mental, physical, and emotional detriment to Priscilla. And God love her, she made it longer than I would last. And I've made it quite a few years with some total douchebag, Steve Jones. I mean, Steve was not perfect to me by any means. But I understand what Priscilla was doing because her whole life was centered around Elvis and this world. She didn't know anything else. She didn't go to regular schools. He told her he didn't want her working. She was deprived of what every normal person gets in everyday life because this is rock and roll. Well, this is Elvis's rock and roll. This isn't rock and roll. I was never discouraged from anything of being my own person and having my own hobbies and my own ambitions and dreams, and no other woman was. Well, Myra Gale Lewis. But even then, she was like, no, she wore summer pants in the family sometimes. Priscilla unfortunately never got the chance until the day she walked out. Which, was another whole thing that was very dramatic with the way that Sofia Coppola produced it. And, and I just, the way the timeline went as well was very, very expected. Everything in this movie was 100% expected. It was what we already knew 1,000 times over. I think Sofia Coppola thought she could really approach it differently, which she did in some aspects. She did actually kind of approach it with more reality in some aspects. Like I said, when Priscilla found out she was pregnant with Lisa Marie, she was terrified because she was so young. She was just in her first year of marriage. Like, she had that, Priscilla, 9 months to the day. She didn't even get to enjoy her first year of marriage. Because again, this is Elvis dictating how their sex life is going to go, how everything's going to go. And her life was playing out for her. And she had no control. Which, like I said, this is a huge theme throughout this movie. Priscilla was constantly trying to be independent. She was growing up. She was going through these stages in life that we all go through. From the time you're 14, 15, 16, when you're rebellious and you're out there doing what you want and you're going to throw a fit until to when you're... And she kind of went from the openness of her parents' house to being very refrained in Elvis's house. She was just shut in. She was so bored. I mean, she's in Graceland all day long. She wanted to get a job. Elvis said no. If you want to get a job, go home. He constantly used that as a manipulation. Because like I said, I think that's what I really liked about this version of it, even though, quite honestly, would I watch it again? No. Because it's expected. But I like the way Sofia brought out the internal struggles, the manipulation of Elvis, how he would constantly throw shit in a suitcase, tell Priscilla to leave, then turn around and be like, but I love you, I love you. You have to understand this is what goes with rock and roll. Just constantly keeping her on a yo-yo. So she does not know what's going to happen next. This is a classic narcissistic way to abuse mentally and emotionally someone so that they don't feel good enough, so that they're always striving to please that person. And that's what Lisa Marie, that's what Priscilla was doing, was constantly striving to be this person that Elvis wanted her to be, and to forego her own dreams and her own desires and her own independence and her own needs. Her needs were never about anything but to please Elvis. And that's why I liked this movie to the extent that I did, because it really kind of worked with her internal struggle being in that world more than any other movie has. But did it tell any other story? No. Was it spectacular? No, absolutely not. Watch it because, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, that it's more about her internal struggle and the manipulation of Elvis. That's definitely the theme throughout the movie, and I'm glad it is, because that side of her story really needs to be focused on than some Lifetime movie Hallmark version of the reality of what she lived. And I thank God that I got involved with the musicians that I did when I was younger, because none of those guys played those games. We were all okay to leave. We were all okay to go on about our own lives. Priscilla was I'm not even sure how long they were married, but she started going on about her life way too late. You know? But I like the way that it showed that when when Priscilla just got sick to death of everything, and she decided to leave, and she just she knew who she was. She knew what she wanted to do. It didn't touch on the affair she had, which I'm not judging her, because Lord knows. You don't, she had been cheated on enough, and she had only known Elvis. So naturally, for her to go out and be curious while she's discovering that, oh my God, I am my own person. Not discovering, but really owning her strength and herself enough to say, I am my own person. I'm going to go out and discover different things. And maybe she didn't discover them in the same way that society thinks she should have. So she wouldn't have had that affair. She just found herself, but what else did she know living in Elvis's world? He would have these affairs. He would tell her it was okay, but it wasn't okay if she did it, that she was the whore. Well, then she decided, no, that's not true. And good for her. I'm glad she finally decided that was not true, because Priscilla's been through some shit in her life, and if it wasn't for Priscilla, Elvis, his estate, his songwriting, it was in turmoil, tatters. It was fucked up beyond belief when he died, and Priscilla got it turned around to the legacy that it is today. So Elvis, all those years, she was thinking how lucky she was to be Elvis's girlfriend, to be his wife, to have the love, she was so privileged and lucky to be in his life, in his world, in his home, to have the furs, the cars. But she figured out that wasn't the important shit. She figured out the real thing that she was important to her was herself and her own voice. So how lucky was Elvis to be with that woman? Because he had, and I'm not condoning anybody who had the affairs or anything like that. That's rock and roll. Rock stars are not going to be faithful, because I am going to be having a woman on here that knew Elvis when Priscilla was with him. Yep. So I do not condone anybody. I'm not perfect. I'm not here to judge, even though 95% of the rockers, when I was with them, did not have anybody at home in any way, shape, or form, or they told me they did not. I knew they weren't married. So I'm not condoning anybody. Rock and roll, you live your adventure. You live it as the woman you want to be, with your own strength, your own decisions. And that was kind of the story at the message at the end of this. Finally, someone showed Priscilla taking her power back. Someone showed Priscilla going through that struggle of not wanting to be there, but still staying there, the abuse, the fear, And one day she just got it and she left and she went and made her life and has had a pretty good life since, you know. She's forever going to be associated with Elvis Presley, and that is a huge burden to carry because I'm forever associated with John. So, and John may not be Elvis Presley, but he is definitely the Elvis Presley of bass players. He is the most respected, sought after bass player. He brought a whole bunch of stuff, but he had his own harem too. You know, was a surprise to everybody else but me. Ladies, come on. If you're kept in New York or Chicago, there's probably someone else in LA, Seattle, and New Mexico. You know, but so as far as the Elvis movie goes, I like the approach she took, that it was more the internal struggle, and it really did kind of focus on how she was manipulated, not just by his words and his actions, but by the pills, by the alcohol, by the partying, by the whirlwind. But then one day she stepped out of the eye of the storm and said, I'm out of here. Good for her. And I love the way she's handled it because, like I said, she's forever, ever. Can anybody, I don't remember the name of her second husband. We all know she has a son with the second husband. But really, the world just sees Priscilla Presley, Lisa Marie, and Elvis. So I'm kind of glad that they expanded her personality like other movies have not. They've kind of kept it very Lifetime, Hallmark Networky, rainbows and kittens. And this was not all rainbows and kittens. And it was shot beautifully, but same old story. Hollywood, time to find something real and interesting. You want to show some more empowered women? Hello, let's get something original going. Because, like I said, the Priscilla story, nothing original. We've seen it a million times. I just like the approach that Sofia Coppola took because it's one that nobody else has taken towards the subject. So tell me what you guys think down in the description or down in the comments if you've seen it. Tell me how you liked the movie, what you thought. Was it a disappointment? Did you think it was great? You know, cinematically, because I really do like the way Sofia Coppola shoots her movies. I like the kind of cinematic effects and the angles and the way she approaches it and stuff. I am a fan of hers, but I'm just not a fan of her doing something. I mean, Sofia, come on. You're not a sheeple, but you just fell onto that sheeple bandwagon. You thought you were doing something phenomenal and amazing that was just going to take the world by the cojones. Well, it didn't, did it? It went from $19.99 on Amazon to the next week free on HBO and Max. So come on, Sofia, you're amazing. Just like Priscilla is. I want to see more. Not the same old, same old. So there you guys go. Like I said, tell me if you've seen it, what you think down in that description. If you like it, tell me your thoughts. Tell me if you agree with me or don't agree with me. It's all cool. So, all right. Thank you to everybody who got to the end of the video with me, who is really just hanging out and enjoying and supporting and just being so cool. All of your love and support, your kind words really does mean the world to me. So thank you. As always. And as always, you guys, we are going to come up with we've got some more subjects. I've got some channel takeovers, some more interviews coming up. I've got a few things that I'm not going to tell you about. They're going to be really cool. So, all right. Thank you guys as always. Like I say, I know I'm repeating myself all the time, but I just am thankful. And to you guys who are just lurking, that are just joining us, not sure if you want to be part of the family, yeah, you do. Have conversations. Ask the other groupies down in the comments. Go find them. The Desirees, Kims, Karens, Kathleen's, everybody. I know there's a lot of K's, but, you know, there's a lot of us here that know a lot of other rock stars that have had our experiences, that feel free to start the conversation with them as well. You guys, we're welcoming. That's rock and roll. That's the 80s. 80s ladies, we're cool ass bitches. And so are you guys. And you guys, thank you again as always. And we will see you here next time on Cocktails and Rocktails with some really cool stuff coming up. So cheers, big ears.